Hello everyone and welcome. We are here today talking about storyline. Specifically, we're going to go over the steps for how to create a branching free selection menu with an everything visited triggered event occurring that unlocks the next item, slide, or scene. For this demonstration, we already have our main slide created using a fake company name and logo. The slides are already linked to each of the 3 buttons on screen, and each supporting slide has audio, video, or images that will briefly be displayed. Let's go ahead and get started with our main slide by dealing with our intro audio. Start by setting a cue point approximately a quarter of a second after the instructional audio will end. For me, this will be at 7.5 seconds. Next, create a trigger with the action set to jump to this cue point when the slide starts, every time after the first time that audio is played. Essentially, this will keep the audio from repeating again when the user comes back to this selection menu. To do this here, inside the trigger, we are going to set a condition. Inside this condition, we want to create a new variable naming it intro audio. Choose true/false for the type of variable with the initial state set to false. Back on the trigger, set the variable condition to equal true for the event to occur. Now let's create the trigger that adjusts the variable to true. Set the variable to adjust to true when the media audio 1 completes on this slide. Now that we have dealt with the intro audio, let's create the custom states for our 3 buttons. Select the button, roll over to the States tab, and create a new state by clicking on Edit States. Duplicate the normal state. Do not select the built-in visited state. Name the state cVisited, which is short for custom visited state. Be sure to copy that name before you proceed. Go ahead and select your color change or properties for your button. Here I'm going to do a pastel red color and say I am done editing. Repeat this for the other 2 buttons on screen, however be sure to paste that cVisited state name on each one. This will save a little time later. Now with our states ready, let's make the triggers and variables that will change the state of each button. Click New Trigger and set the action to Change State of, and select one of your button shapes. Here I am using my button shape for vendor partnerships. Change the state of the shape from normal to cVisited. Set the when to when the timeline reaches. We're going to use our quarter-second rule for this to be checked a quarter of a second after our cue point. So 7.75 seconds. This will allow the screen to appear and the user to be able to see the change occur. For our condition, we are going to set up a variable called vendor visited so we know it goes with that button. This is another true/false variable with a default set to false, but the condition in the trigger will be set to true. Copy and paste this trigger in the trigger panel for each of the remaining buttons. Select one of the copied triggers and click Edit. Change the shape to your next button and then go to Condition and create a new variable that matches that button's name. Do this for any remaining buttons. We will use the cVisited state of the buttons to make the exam layer on this slide appear by creating another trigger. Click Create a new trigger, set the action to Show Layer. It should default to Exam Layer. For the when, select the When Timeline Reaches function. For the time, this can be up to half a second after our previous action on screen, which was at 7.75 seconds, so 8.25 seconds will be when we set the trigger to check and show the layer if the conditions are met. For our condition, we are going to set this to trigger off the state of our buttons being that cVisited state. Just use the Copy Condition button here to duplicate the conditions and then select the other buttons or shapes you have. Great! So we are done with our trigger setup on the menu selection slide. Now we need to visit the supporting slides to set the adjustment criteria that will act to switch the visited variables we created to true. Pick a support slide and create a new trigger. Set the action to Adjust Variable to True. Be sure to pick the visited variable that goes with your button and supporting slide name. For the when, set it to when timeline reaches. Then set the time to be right after the end of your last audio. If you are going to use a next button, I recommend setting the time before the next button will appear. Copy this trigger and paste it into the next support slide. Just change out the variable from the list to match your slide and button. Then set the timeline reaches setting as needed. Do this for any remaining slides and variables. Now let's preview our entire project to test all our triggers and variables. I recommend always previewing the entire project when testing variables.
Let's get started learning more about the company. Choose from one of the topics on screen, and we will discuss it in more detail.
The bottom one first.
Radiance has a large-scale network of vendors and dealers across the world.
All right, when we return to the main menu, notice how the button changed state and our intro audio did not play.
Clients globally.
That is what we want to happen. Okay, next one popped. Now for our last one in the series.
Or date to learn more about key milestones in our evolution.
Awesome, and the exam layer appeared. Let's close the pop-up and choose an item just like someone might do if they needed to review something before taking the exam. All right, and the layer pops up again just as it should because everything is visited. Let's click Proceed. And there we are at our exam. And that was it. That was how you create that custom branching scenario with an unlockable item at the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment below if there is another topic you would like to see covered. So now you have leveled up your e-learning. That was it for this one. So as always, have fun, and I will catch you in the next one.